Very simple. They were in charge with all of the important stuff like raising the next generation, making sure they were fed properly, making sure that they were disciplined at home through a nurturing aspect properly to where when the man came home, he didn't have to necessarily do any extracurricular discipline.
Right.
So that being lost has put women in a position nowadays where they quite literally are only doing what they think they have to do, which is be independent and to be providing for themselves. And guess what? When there's a bunch of weak ass men out there, it makes it that much more even serious that they really have to go out and provide for themselves.
Yeah.
Even more pertinent than before.
Yeah.
Go to the piglets. Start OnlyFans.
What? For your toes? Did you see that they're
Did they ban sex?
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know what the fuck the point of it is now.
And we're back.
Okay.
I mean, do you have any like specific things you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, piggybacking off of like what you and Drake and Ronnie talked about.
Was it in Being a Man, that video?
Yeah, Being a Man 2021 has been like a common conversation I've been having with a lot of like my friends and like people that I talk to on a daily basis. On the flip side, I mean, I'm not a man, so it's my perspective of being a woman in 2021. But then also the relationship that has come to be between men and women and like the conversation that is common for people our age specifically. Because it's very different from how it was like, I feel like whenever I was a younger girl, now emerging into adulthood, womanhood, compared to like how it was when our mom was growing up and whenever she was going into like her perception of what a man is.
The older generation X and the younger boomer generation, more of them will have experienced a more traditional upbringing from a man and woman standpoint.
Yeah. Well, back then also, I mean, there was a lot of more dominant actual two-parent households that it was a man and woman dynamic and not separate.
Well, I'm just saying, they grew up with all girls. And they had to do masculine stuff. So it's like their situation, again, is more modern than it is like, let's say, traditional.
But even then, I mean, like, Grandma Gloria had mom and them like wearing dresses and like Grandma Gloria was doing woman stuff that like mom never really was in a position to be able to do. As much as she might have wanted, she never really was. Like grandma was sewing dresses for them and like making all their clothes. I didn't know how to sew a button until high school. You know what I'm saying? And even then it was class. So I wasn't even paying attention like that.
And that also falls into the predisposition that you had, like you said, like you want to get married, you want to have kids, like that sort of thing is contradictory to the independent, don't need no man.
Yeah.
And it's like, because what you claim you want, or what I feel like most women want, correct me if I'm wrong, but and obviously there's individuation between each individual where you can't blanket state anybody, whether it's race, whether it's gender, whatever. You just can't blanket state everybody because we're all individuals. But I think it's safe to say a higher majority of women who have maternal instincts and maternal predispositions than not.
Yes.
And that is quite literally those maternal instincts are one of dependent, I need a man. And it's been swept under the rug in a culture and a generation, multiple generations at this point of independent, don't need no man.
Right. And I mean, part of that is the conversation that is like geared towards, you know, being self-sufficient, being independent, but also it has come from a place where like, you and Drake were talking about and Ronnie, like men are weak. Like they're just, and this is something that like I've had to learn and really like tone back on that. Like, it's not my job to like big dick a guy.
Right.
That's like it doesn't look right on me being a lady. And it's like, that's not how I'm going to navigate, you know, finding a relationship or that type of dynamic with a guy. But at the same time, it's also not really like in my innate being to be like that, but I've been so accustomed to that type of like environment where it's like kind of secondhand and I have to be able to like recognize when I do that. And man, it has been a mission.
See, because you though have been living such a way for so long that now being intentional about changing those ways is like everything you do is essentially like, oh snap, I wasn't aware of that before.
Right.
Oh snap, I wasn't aware of that before. Even something as little as like cussing, right?
Yeah.
Something as little as that. Something as little as...
Seriously, though.
Something as little as the inflection in your voice when speaking to certain people. Like, I feel like with your boss in a professional setting, you know, there's more of a respect factor there. Mm-hmm. And for most of human history, that respect factor was there, whether you were their boss or just a man in the street. Right. And the problem is the disrespect factor, because women just don't respect men. I mean, you could say it's the opposite too. Men don't respect women, but I feel like there's such a blatant flip on its head of the respect or even the appreciation that women once had for men.
Well, circling back to like your point of, you know, women actually knowing exactly what it is, what they want. I mean, part of just at least my recognition, what I'm seeing, especially on Twitter and Instagram and everything, is like people, especially women, are so like they vocalize and they want to verbalize like, yes, this is what I want. This is what I want. But then there are no actual like actions to like put that actual like into realization or like into reality, I guess.
To put on a front and a facade for social media.
Part of that comes from their inability to actually like know themselves and like know yourself, know your worth. But like really to actually like introspect and like go back to understanding like where things stem from and like why acting the way you do comes from this and XYZ. And that's been like my mission all year long of like peeling back the onion of like, oh, the reason why I do this is because this, and this of my childhood, or because of these interactions I had with guys growing up. And like, it takes people so long to get to that point, but you, at some point you got to be fed up with the results that you're getting and like actually do something about it. Just like you do with anything. I mean, working out with your career, with XYZ, like you have to have an alignment of like making everything make sense. And that's not easy. No. I'm not saying it's easy, but that's what it takes.
Doing your due diligence as an individual to make sure that you are not only just getting by, but trying to be a little bit better each day.
And that's what I was actually reading about that today in one of the books that I'm reading. Like you can see so much growth in your life if you just exert 1% more energy today than you did yesterday in one area. And maybe it's not, you know, I'm not instantly going to get into a routine of perfectly executing every day 100% because that's just going to be creating burnout.
And an overwhelming, it'll be putting quite literally too much on your plate.
Right. It's just unrealistic. I mean, you have to have some type of balance. Like everything comes back to balance.
It's ultimately at that point how you define the balance.
And it's crazy because I was actually thinking about this on my way over. Like, I feel like, especially reflecting on like the past year, I've been on the extreme side of like, I'm literally like, I'm here to create and like grow for myself and figure out myself and like develop into the woman I want to be. But I think there's a level of that is dependent on growth with a man, because there are things that like I have to learn about myself that I'm not going to be able to do on my own, especially when it comes to like the feminine traits that like maybe I haven't really actually like tapped all the way into because I've been so far on that spectrum of like, I don't need a man, or like I've survived on my own for so long and done XYZ without, the providing and protection of a man.
100%. That's the conundrum though, being a modern woman, is not being prepared. And this goes into the video I just posted with Trey, the parental prejudices. Like you didn't see mom being feministic and affectionate to dad.
Right.
You didn't see, you saw mom at work grinding, career woman. You know what I mean?
I would see like that between like my friends' parents, I'd be like, that's kind of like, that ain't a normal dynamic that I'm used to. So
there was bureaucratic incentives to have women become an independent individual, non-dependent from the man, because of the taxes, because of the consumer rate and all that other stuff that we talked about in that video. Feminism. But it's a false, it's quite literally a disingenuous false feminism under the guise of independence, but quite literally the independence or the message that's being preached it's a man-made fucking like just incorrect way to depict like what an actual woman is supposed to be in the dynamic of like men and women in society. You think women are supposed to be in the coal mines? You think women are supposed to be chopping down trees, like hunting down the animals and the mammoths? I like resorting to the actual predispositions of humans thousands of years ago, because you can get a better understanding of what it was really like for most of human history. Yeah. And for most of human history, it was the dudes going out, having to provide with provision, while the ladies were at camp, big chilling under the safety and provision of the men, being able to rear and nurture the family.
Yeah.
Very simple. They were in charge with all of the important stuff like raising the next generation, making sure they were fed properly, making sure that they were disciplined at home through a nurturing aspect properly, to where when the man came home, he didn't have to necessarily do any extracurricular discipline.
Right.
So that being lost has put women in a position nowadays where they quite literally are only doing what they think they have to do, which is be independent and to be providing for themselves. And guess what? When there's a bunch of weak ass men out there, it makes it that much more even serious that they really have to go out and provide for themselves.
Yeah.
Even more pertinent than before.
Yeah.